Namaste, which literally means the divine in me salutes the divine in you. Thank you so much for dropping by. Um, I'm so passionate about Vedanta and non-duality, which ultimately is being passionate about unconditional, never-ending peace. It's never-ending happiness, never-ending joy, never-ending bliss. It's the most fascinating thing I've ever heard of because our experience here as humans on this earth is everything but unconditional, right? Happiness, joy, peace come and go. That's our experience, and then when we get sick and tired of that, then we turn to Vedanta or non-duality and seeking the experience of never-ending peace, never-ending happiness. So, and this is my least favorite part of that, which is looking at false Vedanta, bad Vedanta. And so just let's define Vedanta for a moment. Vedanta means the end of knowledge or the final knowledge. Actually, let's do a few terms here. Vedanta, the end of knowledge, the final knowledge. And it might be more accurately said, the final knowing. It's not like the final piece of information, um, but that which maybe another translation might be that which takes us beyond information. Advaita means non-dual, meaning not more literally not two, meaning that there aren't two things. There's many ways that we think dualistically. The primary one being me and world, perceiver, and that which is perceived. And interestingly enough, Advaita is only one school of Vedanta. There are multiple schools of Vedanta, and Advaita is just one of them, meaning one interpretation of Vedanta. We don't hear that in the West very often. Normally what we're only exposed to is Advaita Vedanta, but there's, I believe, three other schools of Vedanta, but Advaita sells better in the West, so that's what we hear. And lastly, satsang. So satsang literally means association with truth. And I'm not, my spiritual name has been truth for a while, and that's in the process of letting go. That's not, that doesn't mean association with me. It means association with that which is eternally true. Sat means being, existence, truth. So satsang is where that which is eternally true is presented, theoretically, hopefully, more often than not presented by a being who has permanent ending of illusion and abidance in that. And here's the missing piece, and here is where the Neo-Advaita and Satsang movement is just made a wrong turn. is the process, I almost want to say the science, the process of leading individuals to that. That's what's really gone wrong. I have to like to say it's a mess. So in the Neo-Advaita, I don't even want to call it Neo-Advaita because it's not really Advaita, but well, even scholars have used that term. In the Neo-Advaita and Satsang movement, there's really only one thing taught, and that is you are that. Usually, two things. You already are that. There's nothing to do, or self-inquiry. By meaning you already are that, meaning you are consciousness. And then some usually limited forms of self-inquiry. Ramana Maharshi taught that I'm aware of, 18, 19, 20 different versions of self-inquiry, and there are even versions of it that he didn't teach because he didn't create self-inquiry. It's been around for thousands of years. So basically, that's generally all that's taught in the satsang movement in Neo-Advaita. One of two things: this kind of like what's called direct pointing, which has its place, but direct pointing. You are consciousness. You are not the body. You're not your thoughts. You're not. You are that which is aware of those. And then some form of self-inquiry, but generally not the full spectrum. As I said, self-inquiry has this wide spectrum that there's many, many, many forms. And just like, Ramana Maharshi himself taught 19, 20 plus different forms of self-inquiry. So in Neo-Advaita, that's really all that's taught. Well, and worship the people, oftentimes, and worship me, the person who's presenting it, either consciously or subtly, or the people around him or her are like, and worship the guru. Generally, that's not so overtly spoken, but it's certainly implied, it's certainly allowed, and it's certainly encouraged, sometimes in some very sneaky ways. That's a whole nother video. And keep coming to satsang. That's one of the big distortions that's in Neo-Advaita, like, just keep coming to satsang. It wouldn't be such a big deal. I mean, it'd be incorrect to teach that, but it wouldn't be such a big deal if there usually wasn't a charge, or if donations weren't encouraged for satsang. So why is all this a problem? On the surface, it sounds good. Like someone's offering a spiritual truth. Like, hey, you are consciousness. Someone's offering a spiritual practice, even if it's not the full spectrum of self-inquiry. Why is this a problem? Well, because it's not Vedanta. And it's not Advaita Vedanta. Again, Advaita just being one school of Vedanta, but it's just not Advaita Vedanta. Advaita Vedanta has been going on for thousands of years. And that's like taking Advaita Vedanta and like offering, let's see, that much of it and saying, this is Advaita Vedanta. That's like being like, hey, I'm going to teach you the alphabet, and then teaching someone the letter A and B. It's not the alphabet. It's a part of the alphabet. It's inspired by the alphabet, but it's not the alphabet. So let's see what else I want to say. So Advaita Vedanta, classical Advaita Vedanta, not this modern thing that, let's face it, people are making a lot of money off of. Classical Advaita Vedanta is a whole system of awakening. Now, it's very seductive. Now, here's the seduction of Neo-Advaita, and this is how Neo-Advaita gets people. Well, it gets people in a lot of ways. First of all, it's a word game. But second of all, the Vedanta truth that's pointed to is that our ultimate nature is already free. Okay, that's in all the three schools, I believe in all three schools of Vedanta, that's considered the ultimate truth. And the Vedanta, the knowledge, or that which takes us beyond knowledge we're after, is the constant ongoing experience of that. That's what we're after. That's the whole goal. Now here's how the Neo-Advaita will rope you in. They'll say, this is the ultimate truth, which that's accurate. That is the ultimate. That's my experience, and that is. And so as soon as someone believes that okay, this is the ultimate truth, then it becomes a belief system. This is the ultimate truth. I am the self. I don't. It becomes a belief system instead of an experience. and then the belief system becomes defended. I've experienced it since I've been making these videos. Lots of people come at me with, they're coming, let's see, how do I want to say this? I'm going to put that aside. That's another video. There's a lot to talk about. Then it becomes a belief system and not an experience. I've been to satsangs where it's like people just, it's almost like going to church where people just like da 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 da. I am the self. There's nothing to do. I already am that. Why would I need to do this? I'm not the body. I'm not the. It's just like it was just a group of people just like repeating beliefs to each other. None of the people really emanated any peace, and that's kind of, or there's like momentary experiences of peace and like, oh, but I am that. There's nothing to do. That's actually one of the, this is where Neo-Advaita is so seductive. On an absolute level, that's true. There's nothing to do. The self can't act. But the process of getting to the point where that's a lived experience, that's what Vedanta is. It's a full system that leads to the, well, as Ramana Maharshi said, to effortless, constant self-inquiry until there's a permanent knowing moment by moment. And that's completely, and even what I just said is in a sense considered blasphemy in Neo-Advaita. What does it matter whether you're experiencing it or not? You are that. Well, you hear that over and over and over again. And that's because Neo-Advaita is a belief system. Whereas Advaita, Vedanta, is a moment by moment, is the science and the art of leading us to a moment by moment lived experience that never ends. So, the satsang movement is a mess. The good news is that having attended all these, it's like we've got a part of the belief system that's like hammered in. Like I am the self, I am consciousness, da da da. I am at peace always. Like that part's been hammered in, and now it's time for the Neo-Advaita and the satsang movement to grow up and to, we've learned A and we've learned B. Let's call A the affirmation of the truth, and B we'll call being that, meaning self-inquiry. Now some satsangs, some Neo-Advaita teachers even criticize the practice of self-inquiry. That's how off base. That's how off base the satsang movement is. So we've learned A. If you're lucky, you've been to a Neo-Advaita satsang where they've at least taught you B. And now it's time to learn the rest of the alphabet, friends. And if a great place to start is this book by Ramana Maharshi, Upadesha Saram, which I think it literally means instructions. I forget the literal meaning of it. Upadesha Saram. I believe it instructions on the path. I'm not exactly sure. Essence of teaching. Okay, this will lead you systematically through Vedanta. Another great book is The Essence of Enlightenment by James Schwartz, who, if you don't have a lot of the fundamentals of Vedanta, this isn't going to make any sense. And by the way, this is the only book that Ramana Maharshi ever wrote. Everything else Ramana Maharshi did, and this is where it's crazy. Most of what people study of Ramana Maharshi is Ramana Maharshi having one-on-one dialogues with people. But this, Ramana gives the overview of the entire path. But most people aren't going to understand it because it takes a little education. And then, that's the final thing I'll say about the insanity of the modern, the Neo-Advaita Satsang movement is the idea that someone can just get up and like give teachings to a group of people. Ramana Maharshi taught one-on-one. He never gave speeches. Every person, and this is Neo-Advaita blasphemy, but everyone's in a different evolutionary point. And so what's helpful for one person is actually harmful for another person. Ramana Maharshi starts off talking about karma yoga, traditional karma yoga, not karma yoga as it's taught. And it's a mess, friends. But there's hope. Some of us are getting sick and tired of these ridiculous teachings and distortions and people making money and having sex with their students and having their students worship them. And so we're starting to speak out. And so thanks so much for joining in. And not only is the truth out there, meaning there are accurate teachers, and I've pointed out too, this text of Ramana's and James Schwartz's The Essence of Enlightenment, which, by the way, James offers for free on his website. That's another way to spot a Neo-Advaita teacher, is there's always a price tag. Always a price tag. Yeah, let's rehabilitate this very sick, twisted, distorted movement. Much love.